The Bible is the most talked about book in history. Writers who undertake trying to make academic sense of it are a brave lot. One of them is VCU's Kristin Swenson. She's a religious studies professor and the author of a new book coming out called Babel. And she joins us. Great to have you with us, Kristin.
Thanks. It's good to be here.
It's great that I actually learned about you through NPR, local NPR, and now here you are on our station. I know that you were a biology major and that you were thinking about going into med school. How did you become interested in the Bible?
Well, I grew up with the Bible in a mainstream Christian family, so I heard the Bible stories growing up, and I was fascinated by them. There are so many different kinds of stories, so many ways of telling those stories in the biblical texts. But it wasn't until college when I was introduced to the Hebrew, which is the language of the Old Testament or Hebrew Bible, that I became especially interested in studying it in depth. I had a class in which a professor told us that the Hebrew words for the human being and the ground out of which the human is created in Genesis were the same or similar etymologically. Adam, or Adam with a capital A, is related to the Hebrew word Adamah, which means ground or land. And so the human is created out of humus in that story. But I wouldn't have known that if I hadn't been introduced to the Hebrew. And that fed my interest in the environment. Ecological issues have been a passion of mine. And I thought, wow, if there is this suggestion of intimacy between human beings and the ground around us, the earth itself, within the Bible, then maybe there's more within the sacred text that's authoritative for so many people that could speak to our wrestling with environmental issues even today. Now, I've since changed some of my thinking about that as I've read more, appreciating that these are ancient texts that reflect contexts very different than ours. In other words, global warming was not a concern of people in 2000 or 1000 or even BCE or even 1500. So this is...
staying warm was more the concern.
Yeah, or staying cool in these desert climates. At any rate, I became more interested then in studying the Hebrew language and the Hebrew Bible in depth, beginning in college.
Kristin, you've written a couple of books already, and this new book coming out in February is quite an undertaking. What is your goal with it? What do you hope people get from it?
Well, I've written it for people who are both believers, Bible believers, so Christians and Jews. For Jews, what the Old Testament or Hebrew Bible is sacred text. For both Christians and Jews, but also for secular readers, just to have some biblical literacy, some awareness of what's in this text, where it comes from, and why people are so passionate about it. The Bible has influenced so much of our culture, apart from even a religious culture, that not knowing the stories, not knowing some of the places that are so significant in these biblical texts, not knowing the context out of which these texts come, makes it difficult to appreciate how important the Bible has been in our culture. So I've written it for a broad audience, just to give people some background information that can help them make sense of the way the Bible shows up in contemporary culture.
I read your first book, Living Through Pain, in which you take the Psalms and you look at how those are applicable to human suffering. What I found fascinating is that in your dissection and in Psalms in general, there is no blaming of pain on the devil. God is blamed for the pain as well as the good. And I know that you're working on another project that does address, Satan and the devil, but why does not this show up early in Psalms? Why is God responsible for the good and the bad?
Well, it seems that the idea of evil as an entity apart from God was really quite late, historically speaking. The Old Testament Hebrew Bible reflects a theology in which, if I can say that, because there are so many different ideas and images of God in the Hebrew Bible and Old Testament, that the God is responsible for all. A radical monotheism in which there's only one God would suppose then that God is responsible for everything. Now, there is this development of evil as a separate entity that happens in the period we think of as, we describe as an intertestamental period between the Old Testament and New Testament. In the Psalms, we hear these voices of real people wrestling with real problems in a religious context, and they challenge God for what they feel to be, in some cases, an unjust affront. And the object then of their complaint is God. Not every time. Sometimes they blame themselves, sometimes they blame other people, but they don't, as you observed, blame the devil, because if we think historically, there didn't seem to have been an idea of the devil or Satan as a personification of evil at the time that those Psalms were written.
People who want to find out more about your upcoming projects and about Bible Babel can go to your website.
Yes.
That is?
KristinSwenson.com.
And we want to thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you, May Lily. It's great to visit.